Hello everybody. I'm cleaning up my workshop and rearranging it. I actually set it up. I didn't set it up the best, most efficient when I first set it up. So I'm finally getting to changing it around, but got a lot of sawdust, and if you ever had a workshop, you know what I'm talking about, especially if you don't have all the equipment. Anyway, today, this video might be a little bit longer, or it might be really, really short. What I want to explain is kind of complex. It has a lot of information, but it's a major part of all of it. Like I said, the evil entities want to take over this world. So they created money, right? Well, along with money, comes all the laws, right? The laws governing the money. And there's something called the UCC code. That is all the laws about commerce, and it's called the UCC code. Well, there's several things, and there's several pieces, and it's all connected. Okay. Okay, so years ago, they say, centuries ago, a man would go out on a ship, whether it be to war or exploring or whatever. He'd go out on a ship and never return. So they had to have laws. They had to have laws to govern that. You know, what happens to his property? What happens to his estate if a man never returns? And supposedly that's where the UCC laws came from. Okay? Now, on top of that, you have the birth certificates. Now, we don't think nothing of it, do we? We think, well, that's just a record. They're just keeping record of people, right? I mean, according to the United States, they have to know how many people live in a certain area, so they know how to set up the government. See, it's all for our benefit, right? It's for our benefit. So, they brought in birth certificates. Then, they came up with Social Security. It's for our benefit. They're going to give us a retirement. So, you need an account number. But it's never going to be used. Read the card. It's never going to be used for identification. It is strictly for your Social Security. It's strictly for your account, for your retirement. That's all it's for. But we all know, first thing they ask for is your state-issued ID, passport, and Social Security card. And, not or, and. Okay? Now, if you go to court, any courthouse, you'll see the flag has not a tassel. It has a trim around it, a gold trim. That gold trim, everything has a meaning. Symbols have meanings. That is basically a sign. Just like they had typed out a sign, printed up a sign, and posted it. Okay? And that trim says maritime law. Well, the UCC is maritime law. Maritime meaning water, ocean. Remember what I said it started out with? The UCC laws started with, the excuse was they needed to have laws to govern if a man didn't come back. If he went out in a boat for some reason and never returned, they needed laws to handle his estate. That's where UCC started. And of course it grew from there. Now every little thing you do is UCC law. And think, it's maritime law. It's not law of the land. It's not divine law. It's maritime law. Law of the sea. The water. What I tell you about evil entities using water. They're in the water, folks. They're in the water. Maritime law. We are under. Every law we have goes back to UCC law. And it's maritime law. You can look up all this stuff. It's controversial. Every bit of it said that it's a conspiracy theory. But it's true. You can't do nothing. You look up about your birth certificate being on the stock exchange. Look up all that stuff. Okay? It's true. You can't do anything about it because they're not going to let you do anything about it. But that doesn't mean it's not true. It is true. And there's a woman named Heather Ann Tucci-Jaraffee. She changed her name. Heather Ann. It used to be Heather Ann Jaraffee. Jarffe. She changed her name to Tucci-Jaraffee. And she spells it Tucci -Jaraffee. That's the UCCI, the UCC laws. She worked for, she's an attorney. Well, she was an attorney. She don't have her license anymore. Well, I don't know, attorney or lawyer. Now, attorneys and lawyers are two different things, and I can't tell you which one is which. But know that there's attorneys and there's lawyers. There's also legal and lawful. These are two different terms. They have two different meanings. Look those up so you know the difference. But she was an attorney, and she worked for a Rothschild. Okay? And she started this movement called People's One Bank. It's been a long time since I looked it up. They used to have a website. You can Google it. You can look it up. People's One Bank. It's either People's One Bank or One People's Bank. It might be One People's Bank. I'm sorry, I should have looked this up before I did this video. I just didn't think about it. Anyway, her and like 4 other women and a couple of men started that bank. And it was the movement was stating that, okay, our birth certificates are on the stock exchange. We are chattel. We are, to the government, we are chattel. And the movement was supposedly we were going to all get reimbursed all that money that our birth certificate made on the stock exchange. That's never going to happen. Though it is true, okay? We are, everybody thinks the money's based on gold or based on oil and all this stuff. No, it's not. It's based on people. How many people do you have? Anyway, Heather and Tucci-Jaraffee worked for a Rothschild. She was an attorney or a lawyer. She no longer has her license. While she worked for him, he told her about the birth certificates and the UCC law and the whole system. He told her about the whole system. And he convinced her to, okay, supposedly you can file and withdraw from this UCC system. You can withdraw your name, your birth certificate, your straw man from the system. There's been several people try to do it. They've never gotten anywhere. It's gotten to where the courts refuse to even accept the papers. But back when they were accepting the papers, they were accepting the papers. People would file to withdraw from that system. And then Heather was working for a Rothschild. He convinced her to file for all the people in the world. Okay? She took it upon herself, listening to this Rothschild person. You know the name Rothschild. You know the family I'm talking about. Okay? Owned by the devil. Owned by the evil entities. Owned by the fallen angels. Okay? That whole family. He convinced her to file UCC papers to withdraw the people from the UCC program. Now, you might be thinking, well, that's a good thing. Since they set up that, and they set up the maritime law, then that would be a good thing. It's not, because they obey the rules, okay? They're evil, they commit sin, everything is a lie, but there's certain rules and regulations and laws that they have to abide by. Now, in order for them, and I can't explain why, I just know that this is the reason. In order for them to move us from maritime law, this UCC law, into the matrix, we have to agree to this. Okay? Well, he convinced her, Heather, to file the papers for all the humans in the world. Okay? So, now they're free and clear. And I'm talking, this was maybe 10, 15 years ago, something like that. It may have been longer than that. I'm old. It may have been longer than that. But she had done an interview at the time when she was preparing the papers to file. She was talking, they had started that People's One Bank or One People's Bank, whatever it is, and they were doing interviews and stuff, trying to inform people of what was going on and what they were doing. Well, in one of those interviews, the interviewer asked her, how will this change things? How is it going to be different? How is life going to be different? And she said that what will happen is we will become stewards of this earth. First, she talked about how we're wasteful and humans are like a virus on the earth. No, evil is the virus. Evil is the virus, not humans. But anyway, humans are like a virus on the earth, and we're destroying everything. But at the same time, the governments are using us as chattel, and we've got, each one of us has billions of dollars, but the government keeps it. And this is going to set everybody free. And what this does is makes us stewards of the earth. And the interview went on, and she was saying that whenever we want to do something, like build a house or something, we would have to ask God. Only they don't call him God. They call him I forget the words that they use. Anyway, you'd have to ask, I forget the wording that they use, the superior one or whatever it was, but God is who they're talking about. Permission. And who would that be? You can't pick up the phone and call God. You can't go to a courthouse and get permission from God. They're talking about the Vatican. You would have to get permission from the Vatican to do anything. So, basically, okay, and then you hear them now. I'm sure whoever's watching this, I'm sure you've heard them say, you'll own nothing and be happy. Well, there you go. They had to get somebody to take us out from underneath of the UCC so that they can move us into the Matrix. And Heather and Tucci-Jaraffee did just that. And if you look her up, about maybe 5-6 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, she ended up going to jail because a man that was in that group with her, he wanted to use this information to pay off his house. And so she helped him. She helped him fill out the paperwork to claim what was rightfully his. And they ended up going to jail. I forget what the charges was. Something like maybe forgery or fraud or a scam or something. I forget what the charges were. But anyway, I have tried to find that video of that interview, because that interview revealed everything. And here's the thing, I saw that interview before was it before? Well, I may not have seen it before, but at some point after the visitation, I came across it again. Was it after? I can't remember. But I just remember I had it saved. I had it saved on a computer, and I pulled it up and was listening to it again, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, there it is. That is part of all of this. Money being the number one tool evil has to control us. And We're not under God's law. We're not under divine law. We're not under law of the land. We're under maritime law. And evil is in the water. And there's so much to this, and I know I'm just skimming the surface of it, because I have forgotten the details. I've forgotten more details about this part than I remember, because at one point I studied all of that to figure out what the UCC law was and what the maritime law was. But do a little homework on your own. Look up Heather and Tucci-Jaraffee. Look up, now there's an actual bank that's called People's Bank or something like that. It's not that, okay? This website is not an actual bank. They call it a bank, but it's not a bank. It's People's One, or One People's Bank is what it's called. Research that. Research how the birth certificate put us on the stock exchange. But don't go thinking you can use any of this. Okay? The system is not going to allow you to get out. Okay? It's just not. So, just educate yourself on what happened and how did evil entities further entrap us. The birth certificate is part of the mark of the beast. They could not make the mark of the beast without first having us under a birth certificate. They had to get the birth certificate in order to get the Social Security card. They had to get the Social Security card in order to track your health care, and how many of those things you get and don't get. And you have to take the mark of the beast. These things here prepare your body to accept the mark of the beast. Because analog and digital do not mix. Water and clay. It doesn't mix. Okay? It's just like water and clay. I can't tell you why. I don't know why. I was just told that. I wish I could find somebody who knew, who could explain to me. I've tried researching it. I've tried researching what's the difference between analog and digital. And I can't figure it out. But anyway, look up Jordan Maxwell. Now, a lot of his stuff is disappearing off of the internet. But if you can find where he talks about courts and where he talks about language, okay? He studied language. Have you heard of Zecharia Sitchin? He is the man who funded Zecharia Sitchin to translate those books. But Zecharia Sitchin, I don't trust what Zecharia Sitchin said. But Jordan Maxwell is telling the truth. God rest his soul. He just passed away a couple of years ago. But pertaining to all of this, pertaining to the UCC law and how they're moving the entire human race together, Heather and Tucci-Jaraffee filed those papers for them, the Rothschilds. And people don't understand what she did. And I don't have the vocabulary. I don't have enough of the language to explain to people what she did. And I just might try and track her down and see if I can get a copy of that interview. Because I can't find it now. I have looked and looked and looked, and I cannot find that interview. It explained so much. In just like 10 minutes, it revealed so much. Well, I think that's going to be all for now. This is 25 minutes, so if you have any questions or want to know anything, just leave it below. I know I just skimmed over this, and it may not even make any sense to you. But if you look up the birth certificates and how it's on the stock exchange, your all capital letter name, what that means, and the UCC laws, maritime laws, and listen to Jordan Maxwell. He's got interviews and videos on YouTube. It might take you a minute to find him. And don't just listen to one. Like, he's got different interviews. They hit different topics. Some talk about money. Some talk about politics. Some talk about courts. Different in the language. He's talking about language. And you'd be shocked how tricked we are by language. You know they call us monsters. Yeah. According to law, people are monsters. That's the definition. Oh, you fell. Okay, that's all for now. Thanks, everybody. God bless.